not that I'm doing this in a formal manner or anything, but like, hey, I played a lot of games in 2025. Like, I think it worked out to like a little over 60. I have included in this basically everything that I played that either I played it for the first time in 2025 and put in at least a little bit of meaningful time. Or, you know, I have been playing it for a while, but it got some significant updates over, like, the course of this year specifically, so there's a handful of returning games on here. Is where I'm at. This is the full list of things that I have played so far this year. Yeah, obviously, a lot of this is a little bit delayed. There is technically one game on here that I did not technically myself play, but we'll get to that when we get there. And we group played it, so like... And also technically, yes, it's everything I have played so far this year. There's still technically 2 more days to go. But anything I play after this point, I will start making a proper note of so that I can discuss it, theoretically, next year. So, I've got, as one might imagine, actually Game of the Year is not going to get filled out until we're done, because I don't actually know what my choice is. Game of the Year contender is obviously going to be things that I legitimately think could have earned or are in contention for the spot, and things might get kicked out or be boosted up, but gold is stuff that I think was really, really good, but would not potentially make my personal Game of the Year list. Hello. Silver is... I think this game is pretty good, but I have some problems with it, or I just, you know... I respect the game, but bronze is a little on the sour side in a, like, I could easily forget I played this sort of way, but not in a I hate it sort of way, and would not recommend is, I mean, pretty transparent. Well, wood is not transparent, but I hope you understand what I'm going for. Yeah, fairly straightforward as far as my tier lists go, and honestly, probably one of my... Probably this should go faster, but you know I like to yap a lot, so. I have put these in more or less a random order. So. Okay. We are starting off with Home Safety Hotline, which was... What was that? I think it was a Christmas gift. I know it wasn't this year that it released. It's a weird, like, analog horror, like, you are operating, like, you're listening to calls in for help and trying to match people to, like, what their issue is, from, like, normal house decay to supernatural phenomenon. It is an interesting game. I think the part that threw me the most is that, like, the most interesting parts of it are, like, the actual call-ins, and if you're doing it right, you get less of those, because you don't really hear the ends of things. The stories just conclude, because you assigned, like, the right assistance and instructions to people, and it's like, okay, so it's, like, good, but it kind of holds itself back from its potential, but it is cool. And, like, as far as horror games go, this is one of the only ones that's going to be on the list, and I really enjoyed it for what it was, so it's neat. Hades 2, I think... I mean, okay, let's be real. Hades 2 is a Game of the Year contender, and I don't think it's worth holding off on putting it there. Yeah, no, the game was really good. I think the only thing... Okay, there's 2 bits holding it back. One being that Hades 1 already did happen. And so there's only, like... Even if everything is super refined, that magic of the first time encounter with Hades can only happen once. And second, it definitely feels like they were struggling a little bit in post-game to like justify continuing the game loop. And I think even the game sort of is aware of that. But like, yeah, no, Hades 2 is really good. I like it playing it, honestly, significantly more than the original. So. Samurai Warriors 4 was a game I spent a whole lot of time on, and actually that whole tier listing that I did of, hey, here's what I think of all the characters after sinking like 50 hours into clearing the entire story mode of Samurai Warriors 4, that was this year. Time is a heck. Having said that, for the amount of time I put in, you'd think I'd love the game more than I did. But I think especially now that I've put some space between me, I'm like, yeah, it's fine. The game was alright. It lacks the teeth for how much content there is. It is surprisingly all easy. But I mean, that is sort of most Warrior games in general, so like... like, some Warriors games do have it significantly worse than others on that front, but... okay, 20 small mazes took me like 2 hours to clear. And isn't super impressive, but also was a fun little time. I don't think I need to spend much more time on it than that, because it's literally what it says. It's a little bit more gimmicky than that, and if I was to talk about what actually goes on in some of the puzzles, I feel like I'd start spoiling significant quantities of the game. I am actually looking forward to... I picked up the developer's next game on Steam as part of the Christmas sale for a couple bucks, so that'll be a fun night at some point, and I am looking forward to doing that. But yeah, I am counting small little games like that. They're good. Oh god, Magic the Gathering Arena. So this was the year that I actually finally played Magic the Gathering for the first time. Despite, you know, having been in and out of the TCG space for years, this was the first time I had ever actually played Magic. God, how do I even begin to describe my relationship with this absolute mess of a game, especially at the time that I am getting into it, where it's like, the reason I started playing is Final Fantasy, but also, I'm already on board with the UB8, and I understand where it's coming from for the most part, when I see how bad some of it is. But also, specifically Magic the Gathering Arena, I think it goes in bronze. Like, it works. Magic is fun, but also the everything around MTG Arena in terms of, like, the whole reason that I started playing Arena specifically was to get into playing drafts. Only to find out that you either have to sink real money into getting access to each draft, or you need to do, like, weeks worth of daily missions in order to get the credits to attempt a draft for free, and if you win, you can keep going for, like, infinitely, but if not, screw you, and I was just like, oh... what an absolute wall. The actual card game might, like, place in a higher tier, probably would. I have my problems with Magic. It's not my favorite card game, but it's what other people play, so it's what I end up playing. I would much rather get back into playing, like, Cypher or FFTCG, or heck it, I don't know, anything else. But, yeah, Arena, not it. Okay. Citizen Sleeper. This was one... the sequel came out this year, but the original Citizen Sleeper is what I have here. Yeah, Magic having a costly paywall? You don't say. I mean, it is cheaper to play it digitally than physically, but not by as much as you would think. Anyway, yeah. Citizen Sleeper. You ever have those game experiences where you're like, this is a big multi-ending, like, intricate game, and also I don't want to play it again because I feel like the events that occurred and the way that they ran out in the story should just be my experience with the game, and I want to leave it at that. There is something special there. It's not one of the most amazing things I've played. It didn't blow my mind in any way, but I think that it earned that level of respect. Because, like, what it is it's a role-playing game where you are, like, a clone of somebody that you will never know, who wakes up on a space station and is just trying to survive, basically. And, like, it's kind of dice management. You get random rolls that take on your different, like, potential what happens that you assign to the things you try to do. And managing that and getting into a good position and eventually, like, finding some sort of escape route or potentially dying or whatever, just, like, it is interesting. It is not something that I openly stream because I'm like, yeah, it's just not that kind of game. It's very interesting. I don't think it's a Game of the Year contender, but it is good. One of these days I'll play the sequel, but I want to give it a cool down, even though it's been like a year since I played the original. It's not even like an emotionally heavy game, it's just sort of that. I don't know. For a complete whiplash, Pokemon Legends ZA. God, where am I putting this? Legends ZA is very funny because I have seen so many people put this on their worst game of the year list because they have been so bitter about various things. And there are legitimate complaints to be made about it. Like, they spent all that time developing a game in one city and it's using that many reused assets and textures all over the place? Like, really? And yeah, Lumio City does wear out its welcome by the time you are kind of done with it. It is only so broad of a location, and despite my respect for some of the more subtle crafting that went into it, it only goes so long. At the same time, it's the first time that I've ever actually wanted to play online in a Pokemon game, because the ranked matches are so much goddamn fun. Like, I gotta get back in and play, I think it should be ranked Season 5 now? That'll have, like, the DLC mons and stuff, and I will probably get my butt whooped even more than before. But, like, I'm enjoying it, is the kicker. Like, despite all the flaws I know are technically present, I think the most I can give it is a gold. It'll be a high gold. Because I don't think I would name it a Game of the Year, but I did genuinely really enjoy it. Yeah, I think that's where that goes. I'm fine with that for now. We'll see. I might move it around some. Next up, y'all probably can't read what game that is. That is Fossilized Wonders, Touhou 20. Because the 20th main numbered Touhou game released this year. And I almost forgot it happened. Like, I've taken like 2 or 3 boot ups of it and swings at it, and I still haven't gotten a 1cc. The music isn't really all there for me. Touhou can almost get into a bar. Yeah, probably. The first games were probably coming out that long ago. Yeah, the music wasn't all there. I don't care too much for most of the new character design. The actual plot going on is interesting. In that it is very much a critique of AI, which I won't get into on this, but it is very interesting that Zyn tackled that this year. The mechanics are alright. They're very interesting in that the more that you play, the more customization you get access to. But no, I definitely enjoyed it more than that. But not by much. Now that I'm actually confronting my feelings on it, I'm just not that enthused about what Fossilized Wonders turned out to be. maybe I do just need to give it more time. But I can't say it was one of my favorites in the franchise. So I think I'll leave it there for the moment. Okay. Bloons TD6 is technically like a game I have played over multiple years, but also Bloons continues to get regular updates with new maps and towers and stuff. So the funny thing about Bloons is that this game really tries to be a microtransaction vampire, but if you, like, don't let it be, if you just ignore everything to do with spending money in it, if you ignore the power-ups, it literally just piles on you, such that I don't know why you would ever microtransaction in it. It's actually a really damn good tower defense game. I think for the purposes of this year, I still think it's really damn good. I only want to put it at the bottom of gold, because, like, I would highly recommend it, but I don't think its updates this year were super substantial. But I put in a lot of time in it this year, holy crap. Okay. You can kind of see the title of the next one, Chonkers. It was an idle game about getting random kittens out of loot boxes, raising them to be fat cats, and then occasionally selling them to good homes. It's cute for a little while, and then you realize there's just no meat on it. And, like, I know that happens sometimes with idle games, but, like, there is a difference between a good idle game and a bad idle game, and sorry, but this one, no matter how cute, ended up being really empty. Date Everything is a Game of the Year contender. I'm just dropping it straight up there. God, what do I have to say about Date Everything as, like, a whole package? It's such an interesting spin on the idea of the dating sim. Like, I've seen people who are like, oh my god, dating sims figured out complex stat management and stuff years ago, and I'm like, no, it's not trying to be that. There's like a meta level of commentary going on with it thematically about, like, the whole idea of you need to go perfect in order to date somebody and find love, or, like, you need to hit it off with everybody and that a good single ending is the possible end. Like, it is kind of actively in opposition thematically to what a lot of other dating sims do. Like, if I had sat down to script this Game of the Year list, I would probably have a lot more to say about it, because my thoughts about it are surprisingly complex. Like, I like the fact that there are characters in it that were written very much, and I have actually, like, there was an AMA with one of the authors on Reddit, and they were like, yeah, I deliberately wrote some of these characters as characters that I knew would not be everybody's thing, because, like, I like them, somebody out there will like them, and if you don't like them, that's fine in our game, and that is so against the idea of a dating Sims cast. I don't know. I think it's really cool and interesting, and my literal only problem with it is that there has been, like, 3 or 4 major patches to it now, trying to fix up everything in the game state, and, like, some of it I think is still a little bit broken. And some of those things that are broken are like, did this get tested right before release? But other than that, like, yeah, no, it's good. Date Everything's really good. Is This Game Trying to Kill Me? Was a, like, 2-hour little escape room game that had a game in it that you were playing through that also required you to, like, go around this locked cabin you were stuck in order to find the bits and pieces and interactables that helped you solve the game to not die in both. Like most of those creepypasta things, I think the exit kind of, like, careened off a cliff. Like, it took that extra step that wasn't necessary to complete the experience. Which is a thing I think a lot of horror games have a problem with, where it's like it has to end in a bigger way instead of just sort of letting it be this strange thing that happened. Otherwise, high bronze, low silver. I think it fits in the same tier of small mazes of I'm glad I played it, but I can't say it was anything too crazy. Hey, Arashi. Oh, Kitchen Sink Aloha. Ooh. Is this a Game of the Year contender, or is this just gold? Ooh. So this was... yeah, Kitchen Sink is a game that I picked up on because the creator just promoted it in the Fire Emblem subreddit as like, hey, I made a like cooking story game that is inspired by Fire Emblem. And I took a look at it and I'm like, this is kind of neat. Let's try it out. And then I marathoned the entire damn thing over like the next 4 or 5 days. Because it actually works really damn well. I don't think I could justify it like genuinely competing with the other stuff that's going to be in the Game of the Year contenders for me. But I did really enjoy it. Like, the game has... Okay, I need to look up something. I need to find out exactly how many people have not played this goddamn game. Because it's not nearly enough. It has gone completely under the radar. Yeah, it's still only sitting at like 130 reviews on Steam. And that's like... I think that's almost like a complete waste, because that's a really damn good game. Yeah, Cecil, didn't I get you it for Christmas? Wasn't that my Christmas gift to you this year? I can't remember off the top of my head. But I was looking at it, I'm like, yep, this would fit for Cecil. Yep. Yeah, you completely understand. It is batting way above its weight class for like a 3-person teams just hack it we ball game. Okay. Ooh, here's another tricky one. So, I have put Metaphor ReFantasio on this list because I have sunk about 10 hours into the game so far. Actually, I should double check that. Yes, 10.3 hours. My guess was actually correct. Obviously this means I am nowhere near done with it. It is on pause while I play Octopath Traveler 0. There is a good chance it will show up on next year's list of me talking about games I played because of the fact that I will be playing the majority of it there. Currently, how do I feel about it? Ooh. So, I will say this. The game has a very strong start. It is kicking ass in some regards. It also feels like it is a game that thinks it is like a few steps smarter and slyer than it actually is. And also, every time I see it bump into like the Persona framework specifically of like the dates and stuff, I'm just like, huh, does that actually fit this game? Or was the team just... Is the team just not able to break out of what they know works? I am conflicted on it, and I will be very curious to see how I feel by the time it is done. Right now, I am putting it in low gold. It might go up, it might go down, but we'll see where that, like, whether that goes up or down by the time that I am actually doing next year's list and have experienced the whole thing. But I will say it's not instantly a Game of the Year contender for me, the way I know it had been for some people, so. Oh, Bonanza. I'm not going to order the Game of the Year contenders category just yet. Donkey Kong Bonanza was so much goddamn fun. Like, goddamn. That game feels so good to play. And you would think that a game with destructible terrain and stuff is like, oh, you can just do whatever you want. And kind of, but also everything's really smartly designed such that it feels really interesting to find ways to break the game. The movement is way deeper than I think anybody was expecting. You can... I don't know if anybody here has looked into the speedrun the way I have, but holy McHeck, can you do some nonsense? But also just, like, level design-wise, it gets crazy. Like, it kind of fixes Super Mario Odyssey's issue of, oh, we have, like, 880 moons, but it's kind of just a counter that's ticking up, because in Bonanza that's also basically, we have an upgrade system for you, so we have a purpose and a reward for you to search them out, but also, if you just want to play it as a linear experience, go for it. It's full of love for the entire franchise. Way more than anybody was expecting. For those who haven't experienced the way that game ends, surprise. Yeah, no, Bonanza was great. I think my only real issue with it is that Emerald Rush is like... I am kind of the boat of Emerald Rush was probably intended to be part of the base game, and marketing execs pulled it out at the last minute so they could sell it as extra. And it's probably a little overpriced for that. But, like, that's my only real issue. Okay, next up, Isles of Sea and Sky. This one's a relative unknown as well. This is an open-world Sokoban game? Like, literally, it's kind of the aesthetic of, like, a Star Tropics or a Link's Awakening, and you have free roam to go exploring the world and all these different islands and stuff, and tackle the puzzles in sort of whatever order you want. And there's, like, a light Metroidvania element where sometimes you unlock new elements and interactions and stuff that sometimes gets in the way a little bit, because sometimes you get puzzles that are complex enough that you're like, is there something I genuinely do not have yet? Like, that would make this possible? But usually it's very possible to tell when it's like, no, this is just an impossible puzzle currently. I want to spend more time with it. The problem is that usually my brain's not awake enough for it. Metroid Brainia. Slightly? That is a term I've heard emerge unironically in recent years to describe things like Fez and tuning. This one does actually have, like, completing certain things activates elements in the world. But this is minimum silver. Yeah, I think I want to keep it at the top of silver. It's not quite clicking with me as much as I'd like, but I also do want to continue spending time in it. I just have to find the time when I have the brain power. Okay, Silent Hill F. I mentioned there was a game on this list that I had not explicitly played myself, but rather we did like a group playthrough over the course of a few weeks in Discord with some friends, where Curse was actually the one showing it off, and we were all just hanging out and watching and like conversing about the events of the game and solving the puzzles together and stuff. I have the note of some issues in the game. Like, there's probably too few enemies for, like, the amount of battle that the game expects you to do. The environments are not quite as diverse as I want, but also the game is really damn good. That is, Silent Hill F was, like, chief on my list of games that I think kind of got the shaft at the Game of the Year awards. It was good. I really enjoyed Silent Hill F, like, awkward little bits and all. Also things that enter Game of the Year contender status, but, like, only for me and a couple of other people. Tetris the Grandmaster 4, The Absolute Eye. So first off, at the start of this year, if you had told me Tetris the Grandmaster 4 was actually going to release, I would have called you a liar. Because we've been waiting like 2 decades for Grandmaster 4. It was supposed to come out in arcades 2 decades ago, and then it just disappeared, and then it almost reappeared, and then it vanished again, and then all of a sudden they just went, hey, we're putting it on Steam in a month, and everybody's like, huh? Dare I even pose the question of how many hours you have in this? Good question. Tetris the Grandmaster 4, the Absolute Eye. Playtime, 101.2 hours. For a game that is literally nothing but high-speed arcade Tetris. There is no grand story mode like a Puyo Puyo Tetris here or anything like that. It is 101 hours of straight Tetris. I just absolutely fuck with the way Grandmaster handles Tetris in an endless form and the challenges it gives. And I have gotten so much better, and I hate the fact that I have sort of stalled out on the wall that I currently have because I want to keep going higher. It's probably not winning Game of the Year for me, but it's absolutely in contention and it needs a spot for that. Okay. Anton Blast. I legitimately forgot I had played this until I was looking at the list of games that I got for Christmas last year, and I'm like, no. I absolutely played through it. It was... Anton Blast is like Pizza Tower's cousin in both of them were trying to be a new Wario Land game, because Nintendo will not just make a new Wario Land game. And Anton Blast is actually very specifically inspired by, like, I almost want to say Virtual Boy Wario Land is its biggest inspiration. God, I need to find out if the Virtual Boy thing works without the actual accessory on Switch 2 sometime. Because I should really try out some Virtual Boy games. I should totally do that to my eyes. Anyway. That said, I definitely enjoyed Pizza Tower way more than Anton Blast. There's, like, zero question about that to me. I think... there is some stuff that I think I respect in it high enough to land about there. Like, there's a couple of levels in it that are actually really clever. The frickin' liminal pool is, like, just a really cool, weird stage. And, like, overall, I had fun with it, but I don't know. I've never really had the urge to be like, oh, I should go back and play that more the way that I have with Pizza Tower. So, happy I played it into Silver Tier. Baroque. I should have kept the two Baroques together. Because I kind of sunk a decent amount of time into both versions of Baroque, and they're also, like, they're going to sit next to each other. Baroque's a game that hasn't left my head since I played it. But where do I feel like it belongs? I think that looks correct. Actually, I think I preferred playing the modern version a little bit, because the modern version is just a little more playable, even if it's missing some of the atmosphere of the original. I can't say that it was the most amazing experience I've ever had, because at the end of the day, I look at it and go, yeah, this is a Mystery Dungeon game. I've done Mystery Dungeon before. Yeah, I think that's where it sits. But, like, in terms of mental space and games I remember playing this year, it is going to sit in the back of my head forever. Oh, speaking of old games that I played for the first time this year, Twinkle Star Sprites. Steady will appreciate this. This is the game that inspired the Phantasmagoria Toho games. It's like the first versus shmup. And it turned out it was actually really damn good. It's actually better than the Phantasmagoria game by a significant margin. I was genuinely surprised how much it up and how much I enjoyed it. I think it sits bottom of gold for me. Is it the only shmup I played this? Hold on. Yeah, Crossworld's jump scare for Super. Yeah, I think it's the only shmup. Well, okay, other than Fossilized Wonders that I played this year. Definitely the one I like the most, so... Yeah, it's either bottom of gold or top of silver. I feel like top of silver is probably a little more fitting. Yeah, I was looking specifically down in this, in like the list down here. So shoot me. Okay. Last Epoch. I'm trying to remember if both updates... Yeah, I think this was the season that I got really into playing Last Epoch, was at the start of this. And then I did play some more for the season afterwards. God, how do I feel about Last Epoch at the moment? I know it's in a really rough spot right now. There's some dev turmoil going on behind the scenes, and at, like, the company level that is not great. And the game is still struggling with a problem of you hit the end game and it sort of hits that loop of repetitive ARPG endgame way before it would like to. I still think it's pretty good, but I'm probably going to be waiting on a very large update before I play it again. Hey, Lem. Path of Exile, by comparison, somehow randomly ended up literally next in the list, which is fine to talk about next. I mean, okay, it's Path of Exile. I'm still loving Path of Exile. I don't think I've been that impressed with the leaks this season. But I think it's just that I have probably gotten what I wanted out of Path of Exile. Like, I did the one character who got through every damn piece of content short of, like, a couple Ubers and got a Mage Blood and got to level 100. And I did that a while ago. And so this year there wasn't that much onus on me to like, make characters and push them really far and stuff. I think I actually want it down here this year. Yeah, I think that's where it's at. It's comfortably still good, but I'm definitely not in love with it the way that I have been in previous seasons, even though, like, it did get better this year. Okay, Sonic Shadow Generations was last year. I already think Sonic Generations is great. Shadow Generations played way better than I expected it to. I also happen to think that... Oh my god, so I have the playlist for this on Shuffle. I swear to god it was on Shuffle. I just think Radical Highway is really neat. So, yeah, it maybe has a little bit of over-reliance on Radical Highway. I understand thematically why that's a thing. But this was genuinely just the overall strongest Sonic experience in a long time. I'm not putting it in Game of the Year contender, but I do think it deserves to be pretty dang high. Yeah, it doesn't technically play that much different from Sonic Generations, but also it just little refinements and stuff made it really work. And White Space feels like a great update from, like, other than a little bit of complaints I have about Squid Form and stuff, White Space plays like the way better than Frontiers did in 3D. They definitely learned from that. So yeah, Shadow Generations was really good. I really should have brought something. Sonic Generations was my favorite new Sonic game since Adventure Battle 2, so that's a good endorsement. Yeah. Okay. Grace's F Remastered. Technically, I started playing it over a year ago, according to my Twitch VODs. But, like, half my playthrough was in the last year, so, like, eh. And, like, I could also technically have disqualified this from this list, because I have played through the whole of Grace's before, and Grace's F Remastered, like, the main differences are just, it looks a little bit better. It's on modern platforms natively. You can disable random encounters, though I don't think I ever did. And you get full access to the grade shop right off the bat, which is really nice. Also, all the DLC stuff is just, like, right there for you, if you want it. So this one's very interesting, because it is... like, it is kind of an old game that I had completely been through before. How do I feel about Grace's F after, you know, getting the advantage? I still think its plot is a hecking mess. The F arc is trying way too desperately to convince me everybody in that stage is not, or in that cast is not gay as hell. It's failing, by the way. The music's still whatever. The dungeon design is a little bit better than I used to give it credit for. The cast is still wonderful, and the combat's still great, so, like... yeah, I think I can say comfort. Ooh, Warrior's Abyss. Ooh. So this was the Muso roguelike that they did. This was way better than it had any right to be. But also has a big problem where it has basically... like, it kind of has that roguelike thing where you are doing a specific series of challenges, and there isn't, like, enough variety in those challenges such that it does eventually start to run a little dry. Although they have continued to update it, and I need to go back to it, because apparently they have added at least some alternate challenges to it. And also a ton of additional characters keep creeping in. Like, the most recent update... what was it? Warrior's Abyss came out in, like, March or something? The most recent update was this month. They are still doing things with this game. I kind of want to put it at the bottom of gold. Because I do find myself going, I want to play more of it. Down here somewhere. I think I'll leave it there. I think that's fitting. Hello. I think that about matches how I feel. Yeah. Point is Warrior's Abyss was a way better game than I was expecting it. Like, I grabbed it on a whim at the full price of, like, $40, really not expecting much. And then I was like, oh, I sunk... actually, I should find out how much time I sunk into that. Because I can look that up. Warrior's Abyss, 34 hours. So clearly the repetitiveness doesn't bother me that much. But... oh, right. So the next one is kind of hard to see because Square logos all the time on Tier Baker, and I didn't bother to fit this one. Legends of Runeterra. I'm playing it less and less as time goes on. Which is a shame because they're putting more and more effort back into updating the PvP and actually adding new stuff to it. And, like, it is expanding and getting better as a game again. But it's still one of those games that just, like, hurts my soul in a certain way to come back to and try to play more of, because I'm like, come on. I remember the golden era of Runeterra. I'm sure Cecil understands my feelings about this. this is like... Yeah, Steady would also know. This is... Like, I will say, it is a drastically better player experience than Arena, that's for heckin' sure. How dare Riftbound preen where Legends once stood? God, yeah. Yeah, the fact that Riftbound is happening and is taking off is, until I literally start to see things from that working their way back into Runeterra, I'm going to be mad about it. Like, until that has actually become a mutually beneficial relationship. I think it sits just under Baroque. I still boot it up from time to time. It's still something that I can play easy enough on my phone at work. And it's still something I want to be playing more of, just... Please understand. Okay. I'm gonna take, like, just a minute here real quick. Because I do need to grab, like, a can of pop or something from the road. And then we'll talk about Metroid Prime 4. Okay, hi. Okay, so let's acknowledge the Metroid Prime 4 in the room. Which is to say, I haven't booted it back up since I first played it. Now, that is admittedly because Octopath Traveler 0 also released simultaneously to it, and I'm at like 60 hours into that game. I work retail on the holidays, and I have sunk 60 hours into a game that came out at the start of this month. So, obviously I haven't had a whole lot of time for Metroid Prime 4. So that is another game that will probably make it onto, next year's discussion. What I have experienced of Metroid Prime 4 so far is very high. But I can't sink into Game of the Year contender for a couple reasons. And in fact, I think it'll fit here right now. I'm also aware of a lot of the discussion of how other people have responded to it. And while I haven't necessarily had all of the experience of some of the things that people have come to complain about it, I know that overall its reception has been relatively lukewarm, and I have, scraped against the edges of some of those complaints. Like, the fact that the area design is actually really linear, it kind of is for the first part of the game, but that might just be because I am in the first part of the game, and maybe that's not actually true long-term. I've only scraped against the gigantic desert that is apparently, like, people's least favorite part. I've been there for like 5 minutes in total. I wasn't super bothered by the NPC guidance, but I'm also of the opinion that it didn't really add much. But what I will say is, it feels and plays like a goddamn Metroid Prime game, and it is absolutely art-directionally gorgeous. Like, I might discuss, like, specific categories at the end of this as, like, hey, this is my pick for best music or visuals or whatever of the year. Prime 4 has to be in that visuals discussion, even just based off of what I've played. So, like, I am excited to come back to it, but it will be interesting to revisit that next year, kind of like metaphor, and see how I feel about it. Next up, the top of the logo is cut off, but that's actually Dreams of Aether. If I remember right, Dreams of Aether was a April Fool's Day release. And it's basically a miniature WarioWare set in the Rivals of Aether universe. And actually, all things considered, it's actually a really good little WarioWare-like. I don't think I can set it any higher than about mid-silver because it is relatively small. I think it took like an hour to fully complete. But like, I mean, okay, I can hear it now. Yeah, so does the original WarioWare, but like, I mean, like, with its challenges and everything. And like, it was a good time. So yeah, I think mid-silver, it was a good time. I think my only issue... No. I don't know where that sentence was going. I was looking for something more to say. I am looking forward to Mindwave, by the way. I did actually back that on Kickstarter. I'm hoping that game turns out as good through the rest of it as the demo was. We have a lot of things sitting in silver tier. I'm going to bump these fun little experiences down to bronze at least. Anyway, speaking of the background music that is currently playing, Octopath Traveler 0, the game I was just talking about sinking 60 hours into. In spite of what I just said, this might come as a surprise. It's not going into Game of the Year contender. I am having a ton of fun with it. But I actually have a really big problem with it. Can you believe it started as a phone game? Yes. And ironically, part of my problem with it is related to that in a roundabout way. To not get too descriptive, so as to not spoil Aubert and Sage on anything specifically. Although I think Sage has played enough of the game to probably understand where this will come from. Because the original Champions of the Continent did not have a main character, it writes its stories in a very specific way that they have to be villain-centric. And, like, at first you're kind of like, oh, these are, like, love-to-hate them over-the-top villains that are just pushing the envelope. And then, to be as loose as possible about it, it keeps being that. And it keeps being that. And I'm headed into the final quarter of the game, and it has continued to be that. And at some point, all that edge really gets dull. I actually don't really look forward to doing the main story stuff in Octopath Traveler 0. I have been having a ton of fun playing it. But I realized at a certain point I was putting off doing the main story stuff because I really don't care that much. And that's the problem I've never had with an Octopath Traveler game. Otherwise, the game's fantastic. But I'm not enjoying its main story. We'll see if its final act fixes that, but... And that's why it's not in Game of the Year contender. Anyway, there's the short form of my rant. So, Once Upon a Katamari is next. This is the best Katamari game we've gotten since We Love Katamari. Okay, listen, story problems is a pretty big blemish for an Octopath game. The problems that I have... How do I put this? To rewind a little bit. I actually really like the storytelling in Octopath 1 and 2. I know a lot of people prefer and wanted a whole lot more party interaction from it, but the smaller contained stories throughout Octopath 1 and 2 are generally actually really well done small stories that are interesting and diverse and have a purpose to them. Zero's story is one cohesive story start to finish, but somehow feels even less disconnected and designed with purpose. It is a very different set of problems. And that set of problems bothers me way more than any issues people traditionally have with the story of Octopath 1 and 2. Anyway, Once Upon a Katamari, best Katamari game since We Love Katamari. I don't think I can give it any higher than the bottom of Gold. I think that's more appropriate for it, though. I think the thing that frustrates me when it comes to Once Upon a Katamari is that a lot of the times, like, I can see they do a hook for something really, really interesting in one stage, and then they don't push that in a way that they could have to add more diversity to other stages. Like, there is a really interesting stage that happens about halfway through the game, where depending on if you roll up a certain thing that the game points out to you in the stage, like, the stage is on a pirate ship. And depending on whether you grab a octopus that's loose on the deck, you will either anger its mother, which causes the ship to get pulled down and turned into an underwater stage, or that doesn't happen and you actually end up on, like, a pair of dueling pirate ships, bouncing back and forth between the two ships. And, like, that stage divergence is really cool. And, like, there's a bunch of moments like that where you can almost see an idea come to fruition that would have been so much cooler to see play out in multiple stages. But instead, sometimes it kind of just falls back on old familiars. It's like, it's so close to being at the level of innovation that I really wanted out of the Katamari game. It is really good, though, and again, it is the best Katamari game since We Love Katamari. And We Love Katamari was a PS2 game, and there's been like 7 entries in the series since then. But nobody talks about them, because that's how much better We Love Katamari was. Okay. Ball Pit. So I've actually sunk a decent chunk of time into Ball Pit. This is a game that I have seen some people put on Game of the Year lists. I'm not sure why. And I don't mean to disparage it, because it is actually fairly fun. The actual core stages themselves, the challenges, are engaging and interesting and fun little... Like, it is an interesting twist on shmups. But it is both missing some form of extra spice, and yes, I have found the ability to mix and match character pairs, but it is missing either some form of extra spice in, like, its objectives and structure. And also, I don't really like the in-between parts. Like, I don't really like the village management stuff. At a certain point, I got to being able to just auto-harvest stuff in the background and set that up, and now that entire sequence just feels like a chore to access unlocks. Like, it's extra steps beyond me spending, like, resources. it was trying to do something neat, but it's not really working. I am having fun with it, but I think it's going in very low silver. Like, it's good, but it's not much better than good. You know what I mean? Ooh. Next up is one for Sage. Though I don't know how Sage will feel about it. Kirby and the Forgotten Land Star-Crossed World. Because the Nintendo Switch 2 version of Kirby got a, like, mini expansion campaign in it. Forgotten Land is an amazing Kirby game. And this is more of that? But I have to say, I think I was expecting something more significant out of it. And, like, I sort of know that all that was really teased was, like, yeah, let's remix things. Not... Like, it would have been nice to have, like, a meaningfully new boss and not, like, a variant on previously existing boss. I feel weird putting it down in bronze, but I left it feeling unsatisfied. I had a good time with it. It is a good game. Like, it feels wrong putting it down there, but also my gut tells me, like, that is correct. I don't want to put it higher. Now, if you haven't played Forgotten Land before, absolutely go pick up this version. The game is even more gorgeous on the Switch, too. And, like... I didn't really do Game of the Year type lists and stuff for a long time, and, like... That probably could have been a Game of the Year contender in the year that it came out. And if it had have come out with the Star-Crossed World stuff, that would have been... spectacle to begin with. Like, fantastic, but... Yeah, I think that's where it sits. Okay. Peak. How do I honestly feel about Peak? I don't think it actually is Peak, but it is very good. I think it's sitting up here in gold. I think that sounds right. They knew what they were doing when they named it. Yeah, If somehow you're not familiar with Peak, it's literally a game about climbing a mountain with your friends. With, like, super lightweight survival elements. But mostly the core idea is that the mountain is randomized every day. And, like, it is fun, if maybe really time-consuming to sit down and play a round of. It's interesting, because I struggle to find a thing that, aside from, like, maybe a little bit of, like, weird balancing where certain stratums that they have are definitely rougher than others. Like... I struggle to point to anything and be like, oh yeah, this part of it is bad, because not really. I think it's just got that extra little bit of frustration where sometimes I look at a thing and I'm just like, how? I literally do not see the vision here. And that gets a little bit frustrating, I don't know. There is something off about it that keeps it from potentially reaching, like, Game of the Year for me, but I do have fun with it, and I really like it. But I don't think I can put it any higher than I have currently. I might even bump it below Citizen. Yeah. Okay. I think that's where it will sit for now. The Guardian Legend. on the list of really old games that I finally got around to playing this year. The Guardian Legend kicked ass. This is just a really good old game. I guess technically this is also a shmup I played this year. But it's also half a Zelda game. So that's cool. Yeah, no, it's a rough game in a lot of ways that old shmups are, but it's not a brutal game, and I had a lot of fun with it. I think its warts prevent me from putting it any higher, but that does feel like I look at the games on either side of it and I'm like, yeah, no, that's right. So, there it goes. Ooh, Mario Kart World. Ooh. It's at least going in gold. I know there's a bunch of people who were disappointed with Mario Kart World. To me, World did the thing that it most needed to do, which is that because it is on a system that is going to continue to be able to play Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, it had to not just be Mario Kart 9. It had to actually do some stuff significantly, meaningfully different. And between all, like, the adapted trick system and the updated physics and, like, the, like, open world spin on things, yeah. Now, did it necessarily reach... Okay, I don't think it reached Game of the Year contender. That said, that feels... This feels correct. I think. Yeah. Yeah, no, this... Yeah, no, I think it's fine there. Yeah. I do really enjoy it. I think the quality of its courses is a little bit inconsistent. Some of those courses are some of the best in the entire franchise, especially with the new tricking system. And some of the courses are Koopa Troopa Beach. Which, God, Koopa Troopa Beach, SNES courses are my home turf. That's what I grew up on, and how did that happen? But I've really enjoyed World. I do still occasionally boot it up to just play some more of. So, like, yeah, no, it's good. Little Kitty Big City. Got that one at Christmas. How do I feel about this one? Ooh. So this was like a pseudo-open world navigation puzzle about being a cat in a city. I think it can sit... The thing is it's very charming. But I also found myself just feeling lost a lot of the time, and not like... Yes, it is literally about a cat being lost in a city and trying to get back up, but also in the sense of like, okay, I need to find a thing for an objective, and I am going in circles because I don't notice some little tiny, like, crack in a wall that I can actually slip through, or like some path somewhere, and so I've just kind of gotten myself stuck in a loop. It was kind of a frustrating experience to play, despite being overall delightful. I don't know, for how long I waited for it, I don't think it's a bad game. But I can't say it was an experience that I particularly popped off about. Oh hey, there's one for Super Gamer Guy. There's Saturn Bomberman. Because somehow there's a Saturn game on this list of all possible retro consoles. Yeah, Saturn Bomberman was actually a really good Bomberman game, it turns out. There's a reason that it has a reputation that it does. That said, it's not doing anything too special among Bomberman games to really earn a high placement, because, like, Bomberman games have that unfortunate effect where there is so many just solid ones that they kind of all just collectively drag each other down a bit, because it's hard to stand out. And my favorite, personally, is always going to be Super Bomberman 5, because I'm insane, apparently. I think that is a good placement. That feels right. It's not going to stick with me in that way, but it's definitely above everything else. Yeah. Hold on. Yeah. Nocia! So for those who haven't heard of Nocia, this is basically, what if we made a visual novel game that is playing Among Us? It's a social deduction game in the form of a visual novel, where every loop is randomized who's what, and all the characters are procedurally acting around that. And as you go through loop after loop of this game, it starts, like, it gets more complex and stuff, and you start getting into, like, what is sort of actually going on here. That said, for how much I've seen people, for how much I have seen people, like, really loving this game, and as much as I really wanted to, it is a rough game to get into, and I think for me the big thing is that it's a social deduction game where you don't get anything to go off of at the start. Like, especially for a long time, up until you start getting the stats to detect people lying and stuff, to give you any sort of cue in as to what's going on, it's a lot of people throwing accusations at each other with, like, nothing to root yourself in the actual social deduction aspect, and it didn't feel good as a result. But yes, I am aware of the Nocia anime, and I've been hearing good things about it, and ironically, I feel like it probably is going to be something I would greatly enjoy if I was to sit down and watch it, because I think directly and deliberately constructing the stories going on would be more interesting. So I am interested in checking that out at some point. But as far as the social deduction randomized games go, this was no Lost Dimension for me. Even though Lost Dimension is less social deduction and more, you know, that one game with the pegs where you're trying to figure out, like, oh, I put 4 pegs in, oh, 2 of these are in the right order. It's closer to that. Lost Dimension's really cool. Yeah, I want to love Nocia a lot more than I actually do. Mastermind, that's it, thank you. Okay, ooh. Berserk Bits. God. Hold on, where is... Okay, so I played both Berserk games this year. Berserk Boy and Berserk Bits. Berserk Boy is the older one by a couple years. And it's basically... It's kind of... Somebody wanted to make their own Mega Man, specifically closer to, like, the Zero or ZX era. Like, action platformer, light transformation elements where you get different ability sets as you progress through the game. Honestly, really fun. There's a couple aspects of it that you can look at and you'll be like, oh, this team is a little bit inexperienced, and they are kind of trying to draw on certain level design principles for a platformer, and kind of whiffing. Like, they do the thing where they will indicate, hey, this is a bottomless pit below you, because sometimes the levels do have you going up or down. And so they will give you warning when a pit is bottomless and will cause your character to just take damage. But actually warning about that is inconsistently applied, and every once in a while they will have forgotten to do that, and so you will jump down off the bottom of the screen, and it will turn out to be the wrong thing to do. And it's little hooks like that that limit it for me, but I did have a pretty good time with it overall. It's fun, it's fast. I did briefly consider trying to actually learn to speedrun it. Berserk, and if Berserk Boy was them doing Mega Man, Berserk Bits was, hey, we want to do Mega Man Battle Network. And the way they decided to do it was like a Tamagotchi-style desktop buddy, like, idle game. Which I've been interested in and mildly excited for actually quite a while. After they started showing it off, because that idea of just, like, having a Navi sitting on, like, the corner of your desktop and, like, watching them go through areas and stuff and occasionally checking in with them, that's cool. Like, that is an interesting spin on the Battle Network structure. It kind of fits with the idea of, like, you know, you're not directly controlling it, just, it's a different interpretation. Anyway, the game was a disappointment. There's so many practical issues that come up as a result of the, like, it's an overlaid UI thing that just were not great to work around. The actual mechanical side of things is a really shallow and oftentimes, like, frustrating to work around. Like, if you want to change the battle chips that your character gets sent, you have to mess with a bunch of little Tamagotchi things that sit on part of the desktop. The problem is like, well, okay, you can only have so many of them, so now you have to have this bank of them that you pop open and drag things in and out of, and if you want to get new ones, you have to hatch eggs, but that requires you to pull some temporarily out to put the eggs down to open them. And then, okay, well, now I need to find which one is which chip and, like, does a specific thing if I need to customize it for whatever reason. But the menus for that are goddamn tiny. The frickin' chip decks in it, the library of all the chips that you got, displays exactly one chip at a time, and you have to click through like 100 plus of them to find one in the decks in order to check its entry. Bitch! I want to like the game, but there's so much stuff that happens in it that makes me sit down and go, how did this spend 2 years in development? At least? And nobody was like, hey, maybe we should change that? So, yeah, that... You'd really think. Okay, Billionaire. Picked this one up recently. I've played a couple runs in it. Billionaire is very much a successor to Luck Be a Landlord, which was, for those who have maybe not heard that name before, kind of the game that inspired Balatro. And Billionaire keeps a lot of Luck Be a Landlord's, like, mechanisms and very silly attitude, and, like, oh, these items you are placing basically on a Peggle board and then dropping balls into. It's all just sort of whatever they felt like, and they have all sort of things that are just determined more by, like, less by game balance and more by, like, well, what would happen if we had a minecart on a Peggle? It's neat. It's incomprehensible. I will give it a few more runs, and it might, like, if I was doing this with a few more runs under my belt, maybe it would move up. Yeah, Luck Be a Landlord. Luck Be a Landlord is excellent. This game somehow hits a level of complexity that Luck Be a Landlord's weirdness starts to become a problem, I think. But maybe my opinion of that will improve as I keep going. Does it say Volunteer is the Luckbia landlord of Plinko? Okay. Like how Peglin is the Slay of Spire of Plinko? Yes. I just think in this case, the way Peglin handles it and taking it in that Slay the Spire direction actually fits a lot better. I don't know if I'm expressing that right, but so far I'm not super impressed with Volunteer. I don't hate it, but I'm not super impressed. Ooh. Oh, of course JoJo comes up here right after Luminous Avenger X2, which is, the game that I think JoJo actually got me for Christmas last year. I have so many thoughts about what has happened to the Azure Striker Gunvolt series. I still don't know how I feel about the fact that apparently there is a Gunvolt 4 in the works. Because at this point I'm genuinely worried about how they're going to fuck it up even more. That said, X2 might have been my least favorite in the series. I didn't necessarily hate it. The gameplay is still fairly fun. But it's like, for starters, setting and worldwide wise, it is Azure Strike. Okay, here's the deal. Gunvolt as a setting is actually like a fantastic dystopia to me. I love it as a setting because it's a real shithole world, but the characters are so much fun in spite of that, and you actually want to root for the main character to come out of things happy. But then after the second game, it feels like the writer became ashamed of the world that they had written and did not want to continue writing that world. And have, like, the Luminous Avenger IX literally diverts in a timeline that in the second game then jumps into a different universe in order to escape writing that, whereas Gunvolt 3 continued the main timeline, but went, actually, while you've been out of the picture for 30 years, the entire world's happy now. Like, bitch? But yeah, no, Avenger X2 is fun, but it takes out a lot of the fun of the cast and the spirit of the series that I just really would like to have again, please. And like my frustration with that is just not going to be overcome anytime too soon, so I can only give it like a bronze. I can't genuinely say I don't recommend it, but god. That said, thank you for getting it for me, JoJo. Like, I'm glad that I have the whole series under my belt now. If not just so I can bitch about it directly. Okay. Next up is a ROM hack, actually. Super Mario Mon. Is it going in gold? I think it might. There's only so high I can put it, because at the end of the day it is a Pokemon ROM hack. And it's not jumping... Ha, Mario. Jumping to do anything too crazy. But also it's one of the most thorough and high quality ROM hacks of Pokemon and like spin-offs of Pokemon that I think I have ever played. Because it is actually a completely custom setting, music, completely custom decks, events. Like, they went as ham on that as they potentially could without having the guts to break the 8 gyms and then an Elite Four formula. And I respect that like mad, and it was very fun. And maybe at some point I do need to sit down and play Too Many Types too, because that has apparently released in the last couple weeks. and is by the same team, even though it's like more directly an Emerald ROM hack as opposed to complete. Yeah, no, Mario Mon's good. Highly suggested to anybody who's a fan. Rift of the Necrodancer. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na. Because you have to say it that way, because that's how they say it on the title screen. Could this be a Game of the Year contender? I don't think so. But it's gotta be up in the gold. I've got one or two issues with the fact that, like, at a certain point of difficulty, the fact that a lot of its difficulty comes from the way it conceals its notes behind monsters is, like, really starts to become compounding later on in a way that the track difficulty itself would be hard enough, thanks. That said, killer-ass soundtrack, which is good for a rhythm game. Absolutely slap. Fun to play. Very challenging. But, like, challenging at least in a slightly different way from the way that some rhythm games reach a level of complete shit. Yeah, I did play through the whole game on hard, and I've done actually a decent chunk of the game on impossible as well, and dear lord. Also, I think the other problem that I have with it is that, like, it's getting a lot of DLC in a very rhythm game style, slowly turning into nickeling and diming sort of way, which, I mean, good for the team, but also, it would be nice to just be able to buy, like, a Pizza Tower pack for $5 instead of a bunch of little $2 individual songs. Yeah, I think that's the only one I have the frustration with, is, like, the ones where the different colors, the difference between them is that, like, is slight, where, like, one of them will bounce off a far wall and the other one will just wrap around, is frustrating, but otherwise, yeah, no, Rift of the Necrodancer is very, very good. Okay. Okay, next up, the game title did not even show up for some reason, but that fancy-looking little car jumping through a bunch of rings is Sonic Racing Crossworlds. Currently, and I do need to play this some more, and, like, play around with it online. We need to find some time, maybe over the next couple days, Super, to play this if you know here. Currently, it's like sitting high silver. It's not my favorite kart racer. I've got, like, some issues with, like, I am disappointed in its soundtrack. I do think it kinda sucks that there's a number of potentially very cool tracks that are promised by some of the mid-segments, but actually they only exist as those second laps and are not actually full tracks. Which is actually really frustrating when some of them feel like they are adaptations of parts of, like, loops of tracks. Like the Casino Park one, or Bingo Highway or whatever that they do, feels at certain points like they just had to stick a wall on what was otherwise going to be a track and divert you off the course. The vehicle customization is weird in that it feels like the statistical vehicle customization does very little, and it's all in the gimmick customization instead, and so I'm like, okay, but why do I have this, like, micro-level control over the vehicle stats? But not the gimmick, the gadget customization is very neat. But I also don't like the fact that you have to, like, unlock the gadget slots. Like, I know that only takes so long to do, but also that feels like a weird obstacle to throw in the way for something that is gameplay impactful in online play. With that said, it is fun. It is a very strong kart racer. We're about to talk about Kirby Air Raiders, and I will get this out of the way right now. I'm disinterested in that question of, like, oh, is Kirby Air Riders Mario Kart World or Cross Worlds the best kart racer of the year? The answer is going to come down to your personal taste, because I think all three of them are doing things fairly differently. And also, all three of them kind of kick ass in their own ways. Like, the reality is everybody won. If you like racing games, you just won this year. Oh boy, 3 cakes, exactly. Cross Worlds is just not my personal favorite of the cakes, but it could move up as I play it more. I just haven't played it more, because I only got it a couple days ago. Anyway, Kirby's Air Riders is a Game of the Year contender, having said that. If you had told me that in 2025, I was going to get Masahiro Sakurai makes Air Ride 2, I would have said, you're fucking insane. However, that's exactly what happened. And not only is it like, you know, it's like the platonic ideal of what Air Ride promised to be back in the day. That's the part that really kills me about Air Riders, is it is all of the promise of the original Air Ride realized, basically. Like, it isn't necessarily doing an overwhelming amount of different tracks and content. In a way that, like, if you were to look at its Air Ride mode and compare it to the other two, you'll be like, wow, that's anemic. But also the others have absolutely nothing on its sense of variety and, like, road trip modes, challenges, like, or, God forbid, city trial. Because nothing has city trial except Smash for 3DS. Weirdly. And also that one game that got kickstarted this year, Star Garden, which is, we wanted to make Kirby's Air Ride, and also we wanted there to be a new Chow Garden. And it's the same game, by the way. Every game that comes out from it that isn't Kid Icarus Uprising HD or a sequel hurts me personally, but I'm happy for you. Listen, Jojo, I feel you. I also want a Kid Icarus Uprising 2, or at least an HD. That game is so much better than it had any right to be. Like, that game was absolutely stellar. But yeah, no, Air Riders is just... That is like a dream come true game for me, so it has to be in my Game of the Year list. Still have the weird 3DS stand that came with? Same! Because I actually played through that whole game with the 3D on. It's the only 3DS game I've really done that with. Well, okay, I guess there was Mario 3D Land, because that sometimes actually really mattered. But, like, that was it. Okay, we're now at the point where this is only showing so much at once, so I'm going to scroll down a little bit. Deltarune. Specifically, Deltarune Chapter 3. Does Deltarune earn Game of the Year contender status? That's tough. That's actually tough. I don't think it quite does. Which, I mean, don't get me wrong, I had an absolute blast with it. But I kind of feel like until it actually fully releases, I'm going to have a hard time saying, okay, Game of the Year material. On the one, still waiting on those other episodes. On the other, man, those 2 episodes. Correct. Like, what we got of it this year was very, very good. I think I'm comfortable just putting it about mid-gold. I think... Yeah, I think I'm comfortable keeping it there. I will say, I wasn't as high on Chapter 4 as I was Chapter 3. Like, 4 didn't quite excite me in the same way, despite hitting some big notes at the end. Whereas I thought Chapter 3 absolutely slapped. But I know that it's also sort of the big turning point of the story, so, like, it kind of had to feel a little different. I don't know. Anyway, point is Deltarune is very good. You don't need to rush to play it until probably, like, 4 years from now when the whole thing is out. But hey, if you were looking for a reason to stay alive for 4 years... okay, Tower Wizard. I think this sits in... Tower Wizard is a little incremental game, which I'm actually going to put slightly above, and I will just drag it up here now, the Norp Apologue. They feel like the same game. In fact, it would not surprise me to find out the people involved in it were actually, like, the same people. Because so much about the interface and their design is very, very similar to each other. They are little incremental games meant to take, like, a couple hours. And they're fun. Like, I think I finished Tower Wizard at, like, 5 a.m., actually. Because I was just like, oh yeah, I'll just do a tiny little bit more. Oh, I'll do a tiny little bit more. Oh, I'm sleepy as hell, but I can keep going. Yeah, now, that said, they're still, like, small experiences. I can't really give them much more than Aberons. But kind of like 20 small mazes, and is this game trying to kill me? I had fun with them. I think they're fine sitting there. Ooh. So, the next game on the docket. As of the end of 2025, how do I feel about Final Fantasy XIV Dawn Trail? For those who have not heard, 14's been kind of going through it. Like, in terms of... answer carefully. Yeah. Not in the sense of it's bad all of a sudden, but in a sense of, the fact that the patch cycle has slowed down has definitely had a negative effect on people's perception of how much game there actually is. And, like, I won't pretend it hasn't dragged things a little bit for me. Like, we ended up in... God, the Savage tier is fucking, like, 9 months long now. Which is a ridiculous amount of time. And, like, it's probably going to be another 10 months until a new raid tier comes out, because it'll probably be 10 or 11 months before we get the next expansion. Which I am expecting, based on some hints. They haven't dropped, like, a specific date, because they haven't even formally announced the expansion. But everybody knows it's coming, and even Yoshida's been kind of hinting, like, it's probably happening November, December, but... So... Ooh, that's such a tricky thing to dig into, because, like, the theory that they have of it, of we don't want you to make this your only game, if you're done, play something else, is the way that they have approached their gear and progression design. They want to make it so that if you stop playing for, like, you know, a few months for whatever reason, you can come back. And it'll be easy to catch back up. And there's a hell of a lot of good behind that. But it also kind of runs into the issue that, like, a large portion of the player base does want something that's going to take up dozens of hours of their time, if we're also going to have that longer release cycle. And then when they occasionally do release something like that, if that thing kind of flops publicly, the way that Occult Crescent... Like, I love Occult Crescent, but also aspects of it were rough at launch, and one major part of it is still going to remain very rough, and is going to remain rough for quite a while. Like, that release cycle being slower has also made it so that if anything doesn't fire off with the community... Also, where the fuck's my Blue Mage update, Square? I was expecting it by the end of this year. In spite of all that, I'm still having fun regularly with Final Fantasy. Like, I'm still continuing to regularly play the game. Because I just enjoy the state that it is in. The new content that we get, I do actually really enjoy. It's at a very good difficulty level for my enjoyment, even on the casual side these days. Like, even the casual fights are engaging and fun. I like where the story is going, which people have generally agreed the story is getting back on its feet. And I don't even think it necessarily fell on its ass the way a lot of people did. Spoiler, I actually like Luke Lamont. I think she's fantastic. But that's a lot of words to say. I'm mad New Blue isn't here in some way, shape, or form. Yeah, that's kind of it. I want it to be better than it currently is. I am still enjoying it, but this has not been a top-tier year for Final Fantasy XIV. Okay. Next up, oh my god, we can see the bottom of the list, y'all. Dave the Diver. So this is interesting. When I started up Dave the Diver finally, I thought it was, like, a really cool game. And there is some ways in which I still think it's a really cool game. It is a very inventive, like, built out of, like, bits and pieces of other genres and willing to jump to do whatever fits in the moment. I love the visual work that is done in the game. But God, by the time that I was done with it, was I ready to be done with it. Like, it just lost momentum towards the end of the game. Because it kind of just... I don't know what it is, but it sort of, like, lost its focus near the end. I think is the way I want to put it. And its, like, core loop wasn't really supporting it that well anymore. Even though the game requires a lot of diving, it sure does feel a bit shallow. Yeah, that's kind of it. Like, it's doing so many different things that aren't really synergizing well by the end, especially when it gets more plot-heavy. It reminded me of a really convoluted Flash game, for better or worse. Yeah, that too. Like, it's really neat, and I think it's worth a play, but I think the highest I can honestly give it, in retrospect, is, like, top of bronze. Because, like I said, I just really... By the time I was done with the game, in the sense of, like, I was ready for it to be over. Okay. Pixel Cross Rune Factory. It's a Picross game. It's actually a very solid pick. It's a remarkably difficult Picross game towards the end, too. Some of those puzzles, unironically, were fucking with me. I loved me some Picross. All that said, it wasn't necessarily doing anything special. So, like, I'm fine just leaving it there. It's a good Picross game. There's like 300 Picross games in that engine at this point. They're kind of interchangeable. It's probably one of the better ones, though. Shovel Knight Dig. So when I initially grabbed the screen of this, I was thinking that Shovel Knight Dig was the one that I actually really didn't like, the puzzle game. Because that specific Shovel Knight spin-off, I genuinely just, like... For how much I love Endless Puzzlers, I did not click with that one at all. Then I actually went to find the music for this right beforehand. And I was reminded that no, Shovel Knight Dig is the Downwell game that I have not spent enough time in. I think I also kind of have to shove it into bronze based on the fact that I completely forgot that I played it. Like, clearly it didn't leave that much of a mark on me. But then when I saw the gameplay and stuff, I'm like, wait, I liked this game. The fuck? Do you know what I mean? Like, sometimes a game's good, and you're enjoying it, but then you just forgot it happened? I think I'd like to go back to it at some point. But... eh? Yeah. We certainly have a list of things that we... move that to the end. So we end on a big one. Blocky Dungeons. This was an attempt to do, like, a bit of Tetris, but also the Tetris pieces are the layout of a dungeon that you're trying to solve your way through. I kind of got it after a certain point. Like, it kind of started clicking towards the end. But also, I don't really think it worked. This might be... I think this will set off my bottom 3 down here. It is creative. But again, it's just one of those, like, the practical result of what the game is just wasn't clicking for me. Splintered. So Splintered is really interesting in terms of small indie gems. I wanted to make Dragon Quest Randomizer my own. So I made a knockoff Dragon Quest 1, and then made the story about having the game get randomized after your first playthrough. So that, like, an increasingly complex randomizer is the core of the game. Conceptually, I think that's very good. In practice, it kind of runs into the issue that it is so much Dragon Quest 1 in kind of the worst ways sometimes. Which is that, despite the fact that this game has, like, increased gear variety and effects and more room for building and stuff, Dragon Quest is a turn-based RPG with a maximum 1 character party against 1 enemy at all times, and like extraordinarily little in terms of strategic tools that really limits Dragon Quest 1's ability to be an engaging game, even if you speed up the experience curve and randomize it. But I am glad I played it. It's just... like, what it is trying to do is very neat. But it is copying the wrong baseline RPG to do that with. Okay. This next one is Disgaea D2. I don't actually remember when specifically I played Disgaea D2. It may have actually been last year. Unfortunately, Twitch kicked on their a limited video quantity thing recently, and so I lost a lot of my backlog of videos that would have been able to answer this question. And I decided I wanted to talk about Disgaea D2 anyway. So it's here. Disgaea D2, not to be mistaken for Disgaea 2, this is a direct story sequel to the original Disgaea. Mechanically, this may be one of the most solid main game Disgaea experiences. There isn't an excessive level of customization to be had that allows you to get super broken, but it's still impactful, character to character, and they make use of the different enemy types. Like, the strong and impactful passives that they did give out are locked to different unit types, making their assignment of different unit types throughout the game actually matter quite a bit. You have to pay attention when you go through the main story of this game. I liked that a lot. My actual only issue with Disgaea D2 is that the actual story of it kind of sucked ass. It's very much, we wanted to do a sequel to the original Disgaea, and we have no idea what new direction to push the story in, so we're going to largely spin our wheels and hit the same plot beats as the original game again. Also, The level of disappointment I felt over finding out that after so many successive games did Garlyle as a DLC character everybody was hyped over, that Garlyle is literally just a one-off, almost gag chapter that meant nothing and went nowhere? Huh? That said, did have a lot of fun with Disgaea D2. It just... Thanks, mouse. I have just lost where it went. There it is. I think it fits firmly in silver form. I wish I could care about its story the way that I actually care about a lot of Disgaea game stories. Also, why do I feel like something else just got moved that I missed? It did. Where did I put that? Yeah, my inputs got weird there for a moment. I hope that didn't screw anything else up. It looks correct. Anyway. Yeah. I'd like to be able to put it higher than silver. Again, the actual gameplay structure of the main story was very, very good. But yeah. Next up. Path of Acra. This is a weird one. It's a pure roguelike in a lot of ways, by which I mean like actually grid-based movement, completely from scratch every run. The only progressive lingering unlocks is additional difficulty levels. That I think is named Path of Acra because I presume it is at least partially inspired by, like, Path of Exile's complete nonsense in terms of build variety. It's a game where your only real actions are, like, move, stand still, attack, or occasionally pray to your god. But you have so many triggered skills and passive skills and equipment pieces that do things that it's actually kind of a crazy game. It's a great just wind down and not turn my brain off, but just watch some things explode in grid-based combat. I sunk a surprisingly large amount of time into that game this year. Yeah. I think that feels right. I don't want to put it any higher than that, but that feels like where it goes. Next up, speaking of rhythm games I played this year, Touhou Denmaku Kagura. A just straight up, like, what is it, either 6 or 7 key traditional rhythm game, like your Beat Manias and stuff, except it's all Touhou remixes. Occasionally, there's also a Denmaku mode, which is a super simplified bullet hell, where you're just, like, moving left and right, with the bullets coming down to the rhythm. I feel like this is also going to sit in bronze for me. It's not bad. It is a solid core rhythm game. It has a good variety of remixes in it. But, like, everything surrounding that rhythm core that they tried to do was not working for me. The story was kind of mediocre, and the mechanics of the story mode that involve a whole lot of, like, oh, you need to collect these materials by playing stages to level up cards so that your cards can provide you bonuses to actually hit score threshold. What? What do you mean I can full combo a rhythm game and still walk out with a C? Because my cards are not providing enough bonus points. Something is fundamentally wrong with your rhythm game if that happens. So, decent enough. Can't put it higher than bronze. Hey, Dustin. My list is nearing the end for the year. I've been actually making relatively decent pace. We're almost 2 hours in. Okay, what's next? Desktop Survivors 98. This was, I mean, as the name kind of implies, this is an attempt to do Vampire Survivors, but like Vampire Survivors by way of a Windows 98 screensaver desktop type environment where your character literally is your cursor. It wasn't bad, but it definitely falls into that vein of Survivors clones that like had an idea behind them but didn't know how to flesh out around that idea, if that makes any sense. Like at some point you realize that the game has like a bunch of different stages, but they are basically the damn same. The weapons weren't like anything revolutionary. The only thing that was interesting was that there was actually a boss fight of some significance at the very end of it. But also, by the time I got to that boss fight, I was kind of tired, and when I screwed it up at the very end, and I would have had to do it again, I didn't actually go back to the game. I think I'll actually sit it at low bronze. Almost in the bottom tier. But I definitely don't dislike it the way that I dislike the bottom ones. But I'm close. Speaking of games in popular genres, Nubby's Number Factory. Flux, what a heckin' game you inflicted upon me. If Billionaire is... like, it's almost the same thing as Billionaire in some ways, in that it's like a weird Plinko variant that is just getting real abstract about it. Nubby's Number Factory is positively stupid about it, but like in a good way? I don't think I want to put it any higher than this. Because once I'd had my first day of it, I didn't really feel any desire to go back, but I also did have fun with it. It's not like it's a bad game. It just wasn't anything too crazy. I know Flux probably wanted me to put Nubby higher. I may just be getting over the era of like looking at this and stuff. What is it? Like my highest rated thing even in the roguelike genre is Warrior's Abyss and Ball Pit. And those are only making it into silver. Like there wasn't anything that hit me the way that like Balatro of Vampire Survivors did. Okay. One last game before we actually figure out a game of the year. The 100 Line, Last Defense Academy. Game of the Year contender. Dear Lord, what a game. I need to check this one real quick, because I need to find out how much time I've sunk into it. I have sunk 72 hours into the 100 Line Last Defense Academy. I got my first ending at 35 hours in. I have since gotten another 50 endings. And then I really needed to take a break from the game because I had played 72 hours of a visual novel strategy RPG. Thank you for queuing up the soundtrack at the right time. Thanks. And I'm going to go back and get the remaining 50. I have mad respect for the level of ambition in storytelling scope that this game had. Not everything, not every route I have played has fired off on all cylinders. But, like, Jesus Christ. It's so much game, and I love its cast and stuff so much, and it's like such a fascinating like dig into like I don't know, there's so much. I have not unscrambled my thoughts about this game in the months since its release, but I haven't stopped thinking about this game in the months since its release, even though I've been on break from it. Okay. So what do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 Game of the Year contenders. Do I want to move anything else up? Before we figure out what my actual game is. No, Expedition 33 is not winning my Game of the Year on the basis that I only got it 2 days ago. Well, not actually 2 days ago, but like only a couple days ago. I will play Expedition 33. You probably will see it on this list somewhere next year. Assuming I remember to actually do it next year. So, it and Baldur's Gate 3 are forever in the not on high enough sale list. Yeah. I'm not surprised 100 Line doesn't go on huge sale, because, like, for those who don't know the story of it, so it's by the Danganronpa team, but they split off to make their own company. Because they didn't want to be contracted to what other people were asking them to do, even though Kodaka has continued doing contract work to make money, because the company needs it. 100 Line was a project so big it actually sent them into debt. And they were like, that's cool, we'll do it, and if it doesn't get us out of the hole, if it doesn't make the money back, then it will be our final project as a team. And apparently it actually has. Like, they are back on their feet and looking to expand the game in the future. Which, dear lord, the fact that they are talking about DLC of additional routes to a game that already has 100 endings. I'm looking forward to it, because there's a good chance we get a boys' love route out of it. Because Kodaka openly knows how his fans are, and has fully actually embraced it. Like, there's been a lot of random chatter from him, and fun fact, the main character is canonically bisexual, but nobody ever explained to him that boys are an option, so he has never seriously considered it before. Which, yeah. Okay. So yeah, wood tier definitely feels right. Bronze feels right. Yeah, this... Okay, I think I'm comfy with this. Which means, what the fuck is my actual game of the year? What would I least place among the 7? Because I haven't ranked these 7. I've just dropped them in and left it for now. God, this is tough. Dustin, you have to understand, I chilled out with friends on Discord, and we played through Silent Hill F together. And, like, that was peak for me. Yeah, admittedly, not having to be the person who played it probably did help, because it means that I didn't have to do as much combat. Plus, like, as we were going through it, they had the update that was like, hey, on successive playthroughs, that long stretch of combat that happens near the end of the game, when she's just absolutely losing it, you can just straight up skip that now. Plus all the things that happen in the new game, plus that already help accelerate the game's pace. And, like, I will say this. If you haven't, I'd highly suggest at least looking into like the narrative stuff that happens in the successive playthroughs, because like the extra layers that the story evolves as you go through the extra times, and like how that ends up developing and resolving towards the different endings, especially the final one, was so worth it. Um, okay, you did watch through the whole of it, so you probably understand what I mean about like, damn, what a story. Definitely my favorite story of the year, even in contrast to 100 Line being. Uh, I also think the lead's voice actress got kind of robbed at the Game Awards. She did an amazing job. Um, that said, I will put it at the bottom. Because, yeah, I do recognize the issues that the game has that held it back. And I'm going to put Hades 2 above it. Because I think it is... I did mention this at the start, when we did Hades 2 early, that Hades 2 is hindered by the fact that some of the magic of itself already happened because Hades 1 happened. And like, it may have augmented the formula in a lot of ways, but it can never quite achieve that same degree of this is fresh and new magic. So that leaves us with 5. Why did that pause? Hey, Firefox. You doing okay over there, buddy? Is my internet connection still doing okay? That's what I need to know right now. Looks like it is. Yeah, this tab has just completely frozen. Hold on. There we go. Soundtrack back on. Yeah, having it freeze up. I did have an issue with my internet earlier today where it, like, our router straight up died, and we had to get a new one installed. So, that was fun. Anyway. I think I will put Date Everything next. As, 5th. Because it still bothers me some of the bugs that happened in it. But, like, I still think that's such a fascinating spin on dating games. That I can... Like, rough patches and all, and knowing that it will not click with everybody, I still think... Just... A game made with so much passion and such a fresh take on what it means to be a dating game. After that... After that comes Tetris. I don't think I can... Yeah, I can't justify putting Grandmaster 4 above the other 3 that are still on there. Even though, like, there's a good chance that Grandmaster 4 is going to be a game that I'm going to be playing, another 200 hours next year. But it's hard to say that it completely floored me in the way that the top 3 did. God. Jesus Christ, what a choice. Yeah, Game of the Year isn't necessarily the game you spend the most time with. You're really asking me to pick my favorite goddamn kid right now. Here, I'm gonna move them up here so that it's clear what I'm thinking about. 2 of them have to get kicked out. Clearly the winner is Nubby. Nubby is a winner in our hearts. However, it's not actually winning. Nubby is getting snubbed at the Game Awards. So I want to note that I had them just in... Like, I had not ranked them previously. I definitely had a lot of fun with Bonanza. But, like, all three of these I absolutely loved. Only one of those games lets you haul ass as a hamster. This is absolutely true. I think I'm going to drop Bonanza next. There was, just towards the end of it, I did start to fall a little bit out of love with it. But more in the sense of, like, some of the last challenges were a little bit like, okay, I just need to go find this exact small thing. Because I missed, like, 2 fossils in an area, and oh, it turns out I need to collect every goddamn one of them to get 100%, of course. And, like, the Emerald Rush thing. So I think I'm fine having Bonanza be 3rd of the year. And I think the fact that I did burn out a little bit on 100 Line and need to come back to it later keeps it from being my game of the year. Which I guess means Kirby Air Riders. Is that right? Like, there's limits I can see at the edge of Air Riders, but also it is a game that makes me supremely happy. So I think I'm fine with it. God, I need to play more of it. But, like, I will be happy to pick that game back up and play more of it at basically any point. Because it's just really damn fun. Yeah. I think that's it. I think Kirby Air Riders is my actual game of the year among, like, some of these absolute fucking bangers. Like, everything in Gold Tier was, like, has been excellent. Hold on. On the basis that I've only played so much of Metaphor, I'm kicking it out of Gold Tier so far. We'll see how I feel about it next year. It will be back. Same with Metroid Prime 4. We will come back to that next year. Like, those are 2 games I'm looking at them again and I'm like, I'm not comfortable rating those that high at this point in time, with the fact that I'm like 10% into them. Does this mean Twinkle Star Sprites gets to move back up? Maybe. That feels more correct. Prime 4 and Metaphor will sit in the... Yeah, now we are getting into the weeds for sure. The Prime 4 and Metaphor are definitely sitting in the Flux zone. Well, okay, not Flux as we know her, but like that, like, I have only played so much of you. You may very radically... We'll be back next year. We'll find out. Otherwise, I'm generally very happy with it. Crazy to me to see Super Mario Mon up there, but it deserves it. And there we go. There's all the nonsense that I played this year. And I will do a more deliberate job of keeping track of everything that I play throughout the year from here on, so that we can do this again next year. There might be another stream at some point doing just like a shorter one for just the games that were on the NGP this year. Because, like, Dustin wasn't here for the start of this, but I only counted NGP games that were new to me this year and that I spent a significant amount of time on. So that would, in some ways, be a very different list. But yeah, this was my list of stuff. Thank you all for coming by and hanging out. And I will catch you all... God, hopefully I stream again, not 3 months from now or something. Catch y'all later.